Hi everyone, good morning to all. In the previous class, we have studied about the different categorization of towns and the major religious and pilgrim towns in India. Towns and cities of the medieval period can be grouped under the headings of towns and cities. Towns and cities of the medieval period can be grouped under the three headings or three categories. They are the religious or pilgrim towns, trading and port towns, as well as the capital or the court towns. In the previous class, we have discussed about the religious and pilgrim towns. Religious or pilgrim towns grew around the huge temple complexes constructed by kings and landlords. Religious or pilgrim towns grew around huge temple complexes or other religious buildings constructed by kings who ruled India during the time of medieval period and the rich landlords. Madura, Vrindavan, Varanasi, Madurai, Tirupati, Ajmer, Tanjavur, Somanath, Tiruvannamalai, etc. are the important temple towns emerged in the medieval period. Kings and rich landlords gave large pieces of land for the construction of temples and other religious buildings. They also provided money for the construction of temples. They constructed various temples in order to show their respect to the god. Later, these areas gradually developed as towns and cities. Many people from different part of the country came and settled in the cities and they took various occupations. Gradually, people from distant lands started to visit the temples and other religious places as a part of their pilgrim. Some of them permanently settled in the cities and towns. Development in population leads to the development of towns and cities. Gradually, people from different parts or regions came here in search of job. Laborers, artisans, and other people who engaged in different occupations started to settle in the areas. Gradually, this area developed as a major center. Traders, craftspersons, laborers, priests, garland makers, musicians, dancers, and other workers started to settle in these areas. In the course of time, these towns and cities emerged like large cities and towns. We came to know the cities like Madurai, Vrindavan, Varanasi, Madura, Tirupati, Ajmer, Tanjavur, etc. are very famous. People who believed in the religion, they wish to go, to go these places as a part of their pilgrim. They wished to go these places and worship various gods. Today, we are going to discuss about trading and port towns. Trading and port towns. The period, the cities and towns that emerged in the medieval period can be categorized into three parts or three divisions: religious or pilgrim cities, trading and port towns, and last one, court and capital towns. Today we are going to discuss about trading and port towns. Let's read the topic. India is known to have India is known to have been a mineral rich country. It was also famous for many other agricultural products due to its climatical and geographical condition of soil and vegetation. It is known that trade existed between people not only local but also with foreign countries, and produce like cotton and spices were in great demand. Handicrafts were also gaining popularity, and thus there was growing opportunity for trade. The notable was the inlay work in copper and silver from Bidar in Karnataka. This work was known as Bidri work and was in great demand. India's rich deposit of mineral wealth and agricultural produce greatly influenced the development of various trade centers. Later, these trade centers were emerged as large cities and towns. Due to its climatical and geographical conditions, different crops are growing in different part of the country. Products like spices, silk, cotton, etc. had great demand in the foreign countries. Many mineral based industries also developed in India during the medieval period. Indian handicraft products had great demand in the outside. One of the important handicraft products that had great demand in the foreign countries is that the Bidri work. It was the inlay work in copper and silver. It mostly made from Bidar in Karnataka. It is this Bidri works mostly made in Bidar in Karnataka. Thus, this craft work came to be known as Bidri works. Bidar in Karnataka. Bidar in Karnataka. Bidar in Karnataka famous for Bidri works. Bidri works. Several trade centers were emerged in the medieval period. These trade centers collected locally available products from the farmers and craft persons and sold it into the outsiders or foreigners. Gradually, these trade centers, some of these trade centers emerged as large cities and towns. Traders, small and big, mushroomed in various towns to provide for the needs of the growing population. Traders, small traders as well as large traders emerged in various parts of the country, and they provided the essential things to the growing population. However, the towns which were developing as trading centers were on the traditional trade routes. However, the towns which were developing as trade centers on the routes of the trade routes. Trade routes are the routes that is used to carry goods from one place to another place. Last year in class 6th, we have studied about Silk Route. Silk Route is a path that was used by the merchants and traders from China and carried silk from distant lands. Traders and merchants from China carried silk products to the distant lands. The path they used to go distant lands came to be known as Silk Route. Many such trade routes were emerged in the medieval period. Mostly people conducted trade through land routes. So the routes that they used came to be known as trade routes. Most of the trade centers or most of the trading towns were emerged in the trade routes, near the trade routes, or the trade routes passes through the various trade centers, so that the merchants and traders can sell their products and can purchase whatever they need. Trade was carried out over land as well as sea route, and the traders formed guild or groups so as to safeguard their interest. Trade was carried both in land as well as in sea routes. Land routes as well as sea routes were used to transport materials or goods from one place to another place. Usually, sea routes were used to send goods to distant lands, overseas. Many Europeans also had trade relations with India. Europeans and other people who lived in the different part of the world mostly depended sea route to exchange goods from one place to another place or one country to another country. Land route also prevalent in the medieval period. It connected different countries and different areas. Traders and merchants, they organized guilds or groups. Guilds or groups. Guilds or groups to safeguard their interest or welfare. Guilds means association formed by the merchants were known as guilds. These guilds or groups stood for the welfare of the traders and merchants. For example, the famous guilds from South India were the Manigraman and Nanadesi. Two important guilds or associations formed by the merchants from South India were the Manigraman and Nanadesi. In the case of North India, different trade communities or merchants, they formed different guilds or organizations like Marwari Oswals, Hindu Baniyas, Muslim Bohras, etc. Trade was extensive with countries of East Africa, Europe, China, and Southeast Asia. In the medieval period, trade was very active with many countries in the world, like the countries that lies in the eastern side and western side of our country. We have India had trade relation with East Africa, Europe, China, and Southeast Asia. The towns which became famous for trade were Surat, Agra, Dhaka, Masulipatam, Lahore, Kabul, and Kandahar. Kabul and Kandahar were on the trade route to Iran and Persia and therefore gained importance. Kabul and Kandahar are the two important trade routes that lies or located on the Kabul and Kandahar were the two important trade centers lies on the trade route that leads to Iran and Persia. Very ancient time onwards, people who lived in India had trade relation with these places. Therefore, these two trade centers gained their importance. Kabul and Kandahar were important for horse trade. Horses from different regions traded in the areas. Traders brought horses from different regions and traded in these areas. Dry food, spices, etc. were traded through these routes. In this session, we discussed about the trading and port towns. Due to the high demand of Indian goods in the foreign market, trade centers were emerged in India. Most of the trade centers or cities developed on the traditional trade routes that leads to distant lands. Traders and merchants from distant lands easily reached these trade centers and exchanged their goods. They sold whatever they had to sell and purchased the essential things they required. Some of the important trade centers of medieval India were the Surat, Agra, Dhaka, Masulipatam, Lahore, Kabul, and Kandahar. Trade was mostly conducted through land route as well as sea route. Some of the port towns also developed in India. These port towns controlled the trade with the foreign countries that lies far away, like the countries that lies in the Southeast Asia, Europe, East Africa, etc. Let's wind up today. Tomorrow we will discuss court and capital towns.